Trucker Dump for April 26, 2015, Episode 107, The Fuel Bay Golden Rule.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources that help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hello everyone, Todd McCann here. I hope y'all are alive and kicking today. Me, I'm having, one of those days. The day where you sleep fine and you wake up and you feel nice and refreshed and then you crawl out of bed and you almost fall on your face. That kind of a day. Heck, I was just walking into the truck stop a little bit ago. Had an empty cereal box with me. Tossed it in the trash can. Missed. Picked it up. Tossed it in the trash can again. Missed. Picked it up. Tossed it in the trash can again. Finally hit it. Guess what? I was about a foot away. Pretty bad. Hey, nothing you can do about these days except for just laugh about it, I guess. Thankfully, I didn't have one of those days where you just can't keep it between the lines. Am I the only one with that? I have those days every once in a while, and it's just like you want to get off the road, but inevitably those are the days that you have to drive for 11 hours straight. Luckily, well, I didn't have that problem today, but luckily I only had 5 hours to drive. So, thankfully, my day is done. Now all I can do is destroy stuff inside my truck. So, hey, what do we got going on today? Well, I thought this post was actually going to be a short one, but you know me, I went long again like I normally do. I don't know how, I look down and the word count is like 1,500, and I think, that's pretty good for me, and then I look up again and it's like 2,300, and I don't know what happened. I just hope you guys enjoy them. I think most of you guys are probably drivers and just enjoy anything to listen to going down the road, so I appreciate you downloading this podcast and taking the time to do that. So, hey, what do we got going on today? Let's see. I have got comments from David. Well, we've heard from him for the last 2 podcasts. That's because he's binge listening, He's just listening to one after the other. Don't know how he's doing that, but hey, he's doing it. And we're going to answer all sorts of stuff. He's got all sorts of comments about different podcasts, and we'll talk to him a bit. Steven writes in saying that my voice reminds him of someone who is kind of interesting and wasn't really flattering, but and we talk about the Smith system a little bit. After that, we will hear from a guy calling himself Long Duck.
What's happening, hot stuff?
Sorry, I just can't hear that name without thinking of that little clip there. Anyway, he writes in, I guess he has heard probably both of my complacency podcasts, and he writes in with a little tip, and I give him my typically really long answer to his really short comment. Anyway, and lastly, Jed, the safety guy, writes in with a question about dock safety. He had listened to, or probably read, I think he read Trucker Dump, God, I don't remember the number, 101 maybe? Stupid rules that truckers tolerate. Yeah, he read that, has a question. So, but first, let's see, I got a couple of announcements. First thing is something I blatantly overlooked last time, and I can't believe I did it. Okay, I had a couple of different people write in saying that when they went to my website, abouttruckdriving.com, it would ask them to download a file. Now, I never had this happen to me, but I'm wondering if that's maybe because I'm the administrator of the account. I really don't know how that works. One guy, Shannon, who is Holden 657, is that right? God, I hope that's right. Shannon, that's his Twitter handle, or maybe his Twitter handle. Anyway, he wrote in and said that it actually did download it. He just went to and clicked on something and a file downloaded. Now, he was smart enough not to open it up. But I think that was actually a setting he probably had in his browser to automatically download safe files, and apparently that wasn't safe, because what was going on was I had some malware. I don't know how it got on there. My provider is HostGator, and I paid them to go in there and look and figure it out. This cost me about $40 to fix, but they did find some stuff. I thought it was fixed, then like a week later, somebody else said that it happened to them again, so they went back in and fixed it again, and I haven't had any problems since. I'm still uncertain how it got in there in the first place, and they're still uncertain. They don't know either. So hopefully it won't happen again. So just for future reference, if you go to the Trucker Dump website right now, it seems to be fine. If you go to abouttruckdriving.com or the Trucker Dump website, don't click on anything that you didn't specifically try to download. I don't know what it is, and I don't want you to find out. So I'm sorry for missing that last episode. That happened a few weeks before the last episode, so I should have mentioned it, so hopefully none of you got trapped by that. Anyway, that's all fixed, so thank God for that. Now, what do we got next? Okay, I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about loadingspot.com. You know, we heard from Monongahela Misfit last time about it, and I talked about it before that. But I did want to say that, quick follow-up, they did update this app. They included the GPS feature that Monongahela Misfit, I have a hard time saying that, sorry man. They included GPS stuff for his, that he suggested, and it turned out really good. And they also implemented two of the features that I suggested. One was kind of a small thing about capitalization when you're entering the names of companies and street names and stuff like that. But the other bigger one was that I thought you ought to be able to go back in and edit reviews that you've done before. And they implemented that, and it turned out really well. So thanks to Anton and the crew over there for making this app better and better and showing, you know, the aptitude to actually want to make something for truckers that will help us in the long run and really wanting our feedback. So if you haven't downloaded Loading Spot, the Loading Spot app, they have it for Android and iPhone. So get it and try it out, because, you know, this product is, like I said before, this product is never going to be what it really can be unless you get a whole bunch of truckers involved in this and everybody starts inputting information about all these different shippers and stuff. You know, they can only do so much from where they're at. You know, they're not out here in the industry like we are. We are the key to this. So download it, give it a shot. I do need to point out that don't expect too much of this app right away, because like I said, it's in the beginning stages and it's going to take a while to get this thing really where it needs to be. Right now, it's mostly you're just helping out. You're getting in there and you're inputting, you know. They do have a large database, but a lot of those companies don't have reviews yet. So that's what we're here for. So get involved, guys. Okay, enough about that app. I probably won't bring them up next week, or next episode, but hey, you never know. Next, I wanted to mention a brief little interview I did over at truckerstraining.com. Jeff contacted me, asked me to do this. It's just a short little article. If you're interested in that, just asking some questions about what it's like to be a truck driver and some general advice. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the show notes. Or you can go to truckerstraining.com/trucker-driver-interview-Todd-McCann. Don't you want to do that? Just go to the show notes. And thanks to Jeff for inviting me over there. And hey, since I just mentioned the show notes, I wanted to mention something that maybe you, well, I don't know why I'm telling you guys. You guys are podcast listeners. You listen on the podcast. But hey, if you ever go to the website and just decide to read the article instead of listening to it here on the podcast, you podcast listeners know you get extra stuff here. And often there's, you know, extra links and stuff like that in the opening and in the closing and things like that. So I have now begun to put those at the bottom of each blog post. I did it with the last episode, which was Trucker Dump 106, and I will try to remember to do that every time afterwards. So that way the people who are actually listening to the podcast from the website, which you can do, there's a little play button right at the top, they can actually go to the bottom and click on all the links that they'll hear about too. So I hope that helps. I don't know why I didn't think of that, doing that earlier, and if I ever get a whole bunch of extra time on my hands, yeah, that's going to happen. I'll try to go back and add all the show notes into the older episodes too, so, when people go back and decide to start from day one, that they'll have all those links available to them too. Next up, I found a couple of cool things I thought I'd just pass along. Maybe you hadn't heard about it. Okay, drivers, how many times have you been out here on the road and all of a sudden you realize that your DOT card is about to expire? Oh, crap, you can't make it home to your doctor or whatever, and there are clinics out here and stuff, like there's one at the Rochelle, Illinois the Petro. I think there's one outside of the Pilot in Knoxville, Tennessee. But, just the fact that it's taken me a long time to remember where these stinking things are just goes to show how few of them there are. Well, there's good news for us drivers. CVS has a thing called the Minute Clinic. These are walk-in medical clinics that are in 31 states and the District of Columbia. And they have practitioners there who are on the DOT list, as many of you know with the new guidelines. You can't just go to any old doctor. They have to be on a registry of certified examiners. Looks like the cost for these is going to be $109 and $35 for a follow-up exam if you need one. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like you can use your health insurance here. But, sometimes when you're in that desperate thing, and you can't drive without that DOT physical card. So, if you need one, maybe you'll be able to, just go to the website, go to the CVS website and look up the Minute Clinic. Maybe there's one near you. You can drop your trailer at the truck stop there and bobtail down, because I know the CVS isn't going to have truck parking. But hey, I just thought I would mention that because, like I said, I know this has jumped up and, bit me before, and I've had to run into that one. I just got lucky one time and happened to be at the Petro in Rochelle, Illinois, and run in there. So just try to keep CVS in mind if that ever happens to you. Like I said, you can just go to the CVS website, or I will have a link directly to it in the show notes here. And for the last little ditty here, I found something, ran across something on Kickstarter called, I think it's called Advicy Drive. It's spelled Advicy Drive. And basically what it is it's a little wrist monitor and a little clip that you hook to your belt and or your pants, because I think it has to rest up against your skin. But what it does is it's designed to keep you from falling asleep. And it doesn't just do this by registering, I know there's some devices that'll register if your head starts to tilt down or whatever, but this is based on your heart pattern. So they've done research and figured out that your heart slows down to a certain pace when you're about ready to fall asleep. And so it knows that, and the thing on your wrist and the thing on your pants will warn you, and it hooks up to your phone and it'll flash red or whatever color you want it to do, and it's got a really loud alarm on it to keep you awake. It's kind of a good idea. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, and like I said, this is on Kickstarter. It looks like they're quite a ways away from their goal still, and there's about 20 to 25 days depending on I'm recording this actually on the 22nd, so there's probably about 25 days left at that point. So if you're interested in that, I don't know if you know how Kickstarter works, but you kind of fund these things. You can just give them a few bucks, throw them a few bucks if you want to help out. If you want more, you can actually pay enough to actually get one of the things. So if they get enough money, they'll actually produce the thing and then send it to you. And then there's even more expensive packages that they give extra freebies and stuff like that. I've never actually used Kickstarter, but I really like the idea of it. I think it's kind of a cool idea. And certainly this is probably something that the truckers could use. So if you're interested in this and supporting this kind of thing and maybe getting in on the ground floor and get one of these things, getting to be one of the first drivers to have one, go over and check that out. This is a really convoluted URL. So you can either just go to Kickstarter and type in Advicy Drive, or just go to the show notes. It'd probably be the easiest way and click the link there. The last thing I would like to bring up is our CD contest for the Trucker Country CD by Eric McMahon. Good stuff. I actually wrote a blog post of its own. So it is on the website at abouttruckdriving.com, or you can go to truckerdump.com, also works. It's the latest podcast, and no, it's not the latest podcast. I did not make it part of a podcast. I covered it in the last episode, and I'm covering a little bit here. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that he's giving away 3 CDs, and you should check out. I included a video of him on that blog post. I included all of the links where you can find him on Bandcamp and Reverb Nation and Facebook. Can't remember where else, where you can get his CDs, of course, on iTunes or CD Baby, all those things. Like I say, it's a blog post all of its own, but I didn't call it a Trucker Dump episode, so to speak. So it's there. I will include a link in the show notes, or you can just go to truckerdump.com and click on the blog, and you'll find it there, and you'll be able to register. If you did not listen last week, you can also, if you don't want to bother doing all that stuff and you just want a chance at it, you can email me, truckerdump@gmail.com, and in the subject line, just simply put trucker music. Hey, I apologize for the way this sounds a little bit different right now. I couldn't help it. I'm recording this in a different location than what I just was. I screwed up this part really big time, so I had to go back and fix it. So, sorry it sounds a little bit different. Man, I hate that. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to the quality, which is not good when you do all your recording inside the cab of a truck with idling trucks all around. But hey, you guys say you can't hear it most of the time, so hey, I know when I just listen back, I can hear some difference. So anyway, I was saying about the email address, which to enter this giveaway is truckerdump@gmail.com, and you need to put in the subject line trucker music. Now, I do not need your physical address at this point. We'll wait until we do the drawing and figure out who we're going to send it to. Then we'll contact you directly, and then we'll have you send the physical address. That way I don't have all of your physical addresses, That way if some psycho killer shows up at your door sometime and kills you, I won't be a suspect in the crime. Okay, now just in case you missed the last episode, I'm going to play a couple more clips from the Trucker Country CD by Eric McMahon. And I did want to stress, don't pay attention to the quality of this right now when I play these clips, because you got to remember this is, you may not even know, this podcast is done entirely in mono. So it's a low bit rate file that it makes it a small file for you to download, and it's fine for voice, but it's really not designed for music. So it will actually sound much, much better when you actually go and purchase the CD or purchase the digital versions off iTunes or CD Baby. If you don't believe me, just head on over to iTunes or CD Baby and listen to the samples over there. I would also like to stress something that is very important to me. When I listen to new music, I almost always don't like it from the very get-go. It usually takes me a few times of listening to it for it actually to sink into my brain. And then I start realizing, some of the really good songs, which ones I really don't like and never have, or never will. But in this case, you just don't judge this just from these little bitty clips. Go over, listen to some of the samples, but I guarantee even that won't do it justice. Like I said, I listened to this CD like 3 or 4 times through, and really about that third or fourth time is when it really started kicking in how good songwriting this was by Eric. So, okay, enough of that. Let's get on with the clips, and as soon as this clip is over, you may hear the sound quality go back to the regular, because I don't think I screwed up the rest of this. So, okay, let's start off with a little ditty that is really catchy called Mona.
Well, she had a body that would never quit. She didn't use her brain or her keen wit, just serving up slices of apple pie. What a sight for these sore eyes, starring in every truck driver's dream. Looking so hot she wants to make you scream. Mona, mama, 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 Mona. Mona, mama, 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 Mona. Oh, Mona, come home, Arizona with me. One more time, Mona.
Mama, mama, Mona. See, that's one of the ones I was telling you about that gets stuck in your freaking head and you can't get it out. So blame Eric when you get the CD. Okay, let's see. Let's do one more. This fun little ditty is called Guilty as Pleaded.
Very first mistake I made that led me to be untrue was walking in that honky-tonk with whiskey in my view. It didn't take too long till I was flirting at the bar, filled with gin and thinking of sin. The good times went too far. Guilty as pleaded. I did you wrong and I confess. A sentence that's called loneliness. Now that I've lost you, guilty as pleaded. I gave away our happiness. I cannot bear the emptiness. I feel so sad and blue.
I like the way that guitar kind of hops through that song. Man, that's really cool. Okay, guys, quit screwing around. Let's just get your name in on this and get you a CD in hand. We'll mail that out to you as soon as we do the drawing. Again, email me, truckerdump@gmail.com, subject line, trucker music. Good luck. And thanks again to Eric McMahon, who makes all this possible. Thanks, dude. Okay. Now I guess we'll get on with today's post, which, you know, this is something that just really chaps my butt. But hey, as you can see, I'll just get more and more irate throughout the entire post. So let's just get on with it. This one I call the Fuel Bay Golden Rule. Yep, you guys know where this is going. We all know the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or some variant thereof. This rule applies to every aspect of your life. Anyone who says otherwise should be forced to eat my fresh loogies from a spoon. The trucking industry is a part of your life, so it applies here as well. Now, if everyone out here followed the golden rule, we truckers would have a lot less frustration in our lives. Yeah, wishful thinking, I know. While there are plenty of opportunities to put the golden rule into effect, today we're going to focus on one specific place, the fuel bays. The way I see it, once we truckers finally escape the time suck that are the loading docks, there are only two major slowdowns for us once we hit the road. The obvious first one is traffic. Whether it's rush hour, bad weather, construction zones with no actual construction taking place, or four-wheelers being driven by what appears to be armless blindfolded people afflicted by ADD, traffic is a trucker's biggest time waster. But there's another one too. The fuel bays at the truck stop are a major bottleneck for truckers. Every minute we spend at the fuel bay is wasted, albeit necessary, time. And when you get paid by the mile, time is money. For starters, every trucker has to go there at least every other day, perhaps more if you're team driving. And the last time I checked, diesel engines still require fuel to keep on churning. Now, if some budding genius could only figure out a way to harness all the gas stored in a trucker's seat cushion, well, they'd be richer than a Cadbury cream egg. Sadly, there are only so many fuel bays. If you go to any of the major truck stop chains during the day, there's a decent chance you'll have to wait in line to get fuel. Even if you are lucky enough to pull right into a bay, that's still no guarantee you're getting out of there quickly. And that brings us to the subject at hand. What should and shouldn't you do when at a fuel bay? Prepare before you get there. Okay, now to be clear, I'm not saying you should put on your shoes, jacket, and gloves while you're flying down the exit ramp. Let's leave the whacked out exit ramp tactics to the four-wheeler nut job, shall we? But if you need to call your company to approve the purchase, please do that before you pull into the fuel bay. I can't count how many times I've watched a driver pull his brakes, then get out his cell phone and make a call. Hello, McFly? This is not the place to do that. You knew you're going to need fuel before you got here, right? Why haven't you already taken care of this? And if that's a personal call you're making, well, then you deserve to eat my loogies too. And this time, I'm hoping there's a little blood mixed in for good measure. But let's face it. There are times when your fuel card just hates you. Listen, we all have fuel card issues now and then. The thing is, you usually don't know how long it's going to take to sort it out until you're already well into the process. Here's the way I handle this. If the card reader's giving you fits, head into the fuel desk. 9 times out of 10, the cashier can get the pump turned on by manually entering your information. And hey, Einstein, this means you should actually bring all your relevant information with you. Don't make everyone wait on you while you run out to get the mileage off your truck. Now, I'll have to admit that most truckers are good up until this point. But now the cashier says, "There's something wrong with the card. I'm going to have to call ComData." Or whoever your card belongs to. Okay, now here's where most drivers break the golden rule. Most drivers will stand there and stare at the cashier while she listens to hold music for 5 minutes, which is fine for the drivers in line because the cashier will likely keep helping other customers. But what about the driver who's sitting behind your truck? He's already stood out on his running board and looked up at your truck, shaking his head with disgust. Twice. They may have even walked up to your door to see what the holdup is. But you aren't there. You're inside watching someone hold a phone. Unacceptable, driver. What you should do is go back out to your truck the instant the cashier picks up the phone. Even if they were to get through right away, you have no way of knowing if they'll be able to fix the problem quickly or not. Sometimes you'll wait for 10 minutes while they try to fix it, only for them to hang up and tell you that the problem is on your company's end. Ugh. Now, if nobody is behind your truck when you go out to check, you can do one of two things. 1, assume the worst and go park your truck until the mess is sorted out. Or 2, run out and check on it periodically to make sure you aren't holding anyone up. I prefer the first method, but I'm sure most of you will do the second. And if you've decided to ignore me altogether and block the fuel bay, at least go back and tell the driver behind you that you're having fuel card issues. He'll still be pissed that you're blocking the fuel bay, but at least he'll be able to move to another line with a less jerky driver. Speaking of holding up other drivers, always pull forward after fueling. The fuel bay is not a parking spot. I've seen drivers do this more often than I'd like. You're done fueling and now you're being blocked by the previous driver. You impatiently wait for a bit, but then you decide to leave your truck in the fuel bay and run into the truck stop. You'll be in and out in a jiffy, right? Well, inevitably, the other driver gets back to his truck just a minute or two after you vacate yours. Now your truck is keeping another driver from fueling, so now you're wasting his time, which was the very thing you were pissed off about 5 minutes ago when the other driver was in front of you, you bonehead. The one time it is acceptable to run in real quick is if you're going to find the driver or ask the cashier to use the intercom to get him moving. Oh, and I suppose I'll give you one other reason. I'd much rather wait on you for a couple of minutes than see you take a whiz in the fuel bay. Come on, man, drivers gotta walk there. The fuel bays are not parking spots. This goes for the spaces in front of the bays too. Now, if you just need a cup of joe and a donut, then by all means, go for it. Although perhaps you should take a look at your waistline before you make that particular choice. But if you're going in to grab some grub at Subway, Wendy's, or the ever-so-delicious Taco Hell, then please have a look at the line before you step up. If there's more than 1 or 2 people in line, I'm going to go back and look to see if I'm blocking anyone. If not, I head back in. If yes, I either go park my truck and walk back in, or I take that opportunity to instead hit the road again with yet another peanut butter and jelly sandwich in hand, which does wonders for my cheapskate ego. And hey, if you have to wait on fresh fries or something, go out and check on your truck. Pretty please. Now I know the chances of most drivers doing any of this is Karen Carpenter to none, but hey, we can always hope. Hey man, watch where you're hosing. How many times have you been fueling away when you're suddenly shocked into a surprise kitten-like jump by a splash of water from the next bay over? Now, I'm not a confrontational kind of guy, but I always let out a hey to let the offender know that they need some hose control. Now, sure, the hose is there for us to use, so have at it. Just follow the golden rule. You want the next guy over to look where he's hosing, so you do it too. Now, I will say that this isn't always a bad thing on a hot summer day, but the last thing you want during the winter is some ice water running down your shirt. The simple remedy is to look, and if you see someone, warn him you're about to whip the hose out. Yes, I'm 13 years old. It's called a fuel bay, not a wash bay. I approve of squeegees. Squeegees are good. By all means, use the squeegees. And the more times you can say the word squeegee, the better. But here's the thing with squeegees. If it's glass or plastic, squeegee away. If it's not, please refrain. We've all seen the guy who's trying to save the $40 run to Blue Beacon by squeegeeing his entire truck cab, which of course is followed by drenching the driver in the next bay with an errant water hose. So I can hear you say, "What do you care? Ain't no one behind me. I ain't blocking no one." Perhaps that's true, but I still don't like it, so knock it off. Thanks. No showers! Yes, I'm yelling. I'm getting more and more irate the further I go into this. Seriously, folks, if you've ever parked on the fuel bay and gone in to take a shower, then I think your children should have to eat my spoon loogies. Now, I have seen a driver ask to park in front of a broken fuel bay to take a quick shower, though. I've got no problem with this guy. First, he asked the cashier, and second, he wasn't blocking anyone. I once parked in a similar spot when I was waiting on a driver to relay my load. Again, it was late at night, the parking lot was full, I asked the cashier, and it was a broken fuel pump with a barrel in front of it. No harm, no foul, I say. No 30-minute breaks. If that 8-hour mark is creeping up on you, please find a parking space to take your mandatory 30-minute Twitter break. The only caveat here is if there are no parking spaces to be had. Now, I'm sure most of you have been in this situation at one time or another, but how did you handle it? When it's late and I need to do a 30-minute Clash of Clans break, I'll pull through a fuel bay and park. If someone pulls up behind me to fuel, I watch in my mirror until I see them hang up the hose. With that, I drive around and pull into another empty bay. Rinse and repeat until my 30-minute Crossy Road break is over. Even better, if you see a broken pump, use that lane. Now, I've seen a driver do a full 30-minute break in the fuel bays at the Flying J in Waco. It was in the evening and there were lots of trucks pulling in. He was already sitting next to the pump when I pulled into line behind the truck in the bay next to him, so I got to see the whole thing. When I finally got up to the pump, he was just sitting there looking at a magazine. He was still sitting there when I pulled off some 20 minutes later. Now you might be saying, maybe his co-driver was inside. Well, maybe that's true. But does that change anything? He was still blocking other drivers from fueling, right? Don't mess with the bull, son. You'll get the horns. In short, don't block the friggin' fuel bays. There is no excuse that you can give me that will relax my views on this. Even religion won't work on this kid. Believe it or not, I once saw a Muslim man who had laid down a carpet in front of his truck and he was saying his prayers while he was in front of a fuel bay. Seriously, hand on the Bible there. While he wasn't keeping anyone from fueling, he did cause the driver behind him to have to back out of the fuel bay to get back on the road. Again, I say, unacceptable, driver. Once again, Here is the rule of thumb. If there's even a remote chance of you holding someone up for more than a few minutes, go find a parking space. End of discussion. Now, I know there are some of you out there who don't believe that I take this much care about doing unto others as I would have them do to me, but it's the God's honest truth. I talked about the concept of putting yourself in someone else's shoes all the way back in Trucker Dump 3, which was called What Has Happened to Common Courtesy. And I drove it home big time in Trucker Dump 66, which was called Truckers Go Turtle Racing. So here's my offer to you. If any of you ever see me waltzing back to my fuel bay blocking truck after you've been waiting for more than 3 minutes, feel free to walk up, judo chop me in the throat, and call me a hypocrite. Just please ask me to put down my taco hell bag first. No one likes crushed Mexican pizzas, you know.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
I'll take that load of feedback right here, pal. Seriously, folks, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole show. Email, I will admit, is a major pain in the butt, and I'm always seems to be behind on it, but I can't help it. I like getting it. I love it when I see somebody who has written in about the show, about something that they've seen. They've got a comment about it. Love it even better when I get audio comments, which I do have one coming up soon as I can figure out how to open the stinking thing. I'm having trouble with it. My Mac does not want to read it for some weird reason. I figured it out before, but I'll figure it out again. Anyway, like I was saying, this is one of my favorite times. I love that you guys are out there listening. I love to hear it, and I just like to hear your comments. So keep them coming. So first up, we'll hear from, like I mentioned, David again. Like I say, he's binge listening big time, so this kind of will jump all over the place. He covers a few different topics from a few of my different posts here. So he says, really enjoying your back episodes, Todd. I can really relate to driver funk. It seems to be tied to how tired we are out here. We might be parked for 10 hours, but if someone pulls in beside us with a reefer, we won't have much sleep. As to your problem with wipers freezing up, get a stick about 16 inches long and with the window down, wipers on, and no one near you. Yeah, good point. Use it to lift the offending wiper off the window and let it slap back, dislodging the ice. It saves parking on a snow-covered ramp. He says, I got to admit I am a day driver. I've tried both, and turning my biorhythms upside down doesn't work for me at all. Next subject. He says, you were talking about passion for your job or lack thereof. I listened to a podcast by Dan Miller called 48 Days, or 48days.com. You might like what he has to say about passion for the job. He's into and solutions, not either or. Maybe you write novels and drive? As for your unnamed company that won't let you cook in the truck and basically insists you eat fast food and has surly dispatchers to boot, I'd probably pack up my bedding and Cheerios and oatmeal and leave. I could say a lot more, but I better not. Thanks and keep posting. Driver Dave. Well, Dave, I'm glad all my back episodes are giving you something to occupy at least some of your driving time. Perhaps if you listen to something a bit more exciting, you wouldn't be so tired all the time. You know, I haven't noticed if my driver funks correlate to the times that I'm most pooped, but you're probably right about that. I'll have to start paying more attention. You know, I really don't get in a funk very often, though. Most of the time, I'm able to suck it up and just do what needs to be done. Not without much whining, mind you. I think my funks hit me the hardest after my home times. And it's not just the good home times either. It's also the bad. Unfortunately, it's fresh on my mind that I'm missing the fun times hanging out with my family, but I also tend to be funky when I've had a bad time. Like, say, when the evil overlord and I have had an argument, or one of my nephews needs some extra attention paid to some less than desirable character trait. Yet I have to leave the house before things are resolved. As for that freezing wiper issue, I hadn't considered using a stick before, but I do reach my arm out the window and thump the wiper to knock the ice off. It is a bit of a stretch, though. I just wish someone would invent a wiper blade that wouldn't let ice form in the first place. Whether you're reaching out the window with a stick, your arm, or even pulling off on an off-ramp, none of those options are as safe as a non-freezing wiper blade. And hey, if anybody out there knows of a non-freezing wiper blade that actually works, that's the important part, that actually works, please let me know. Okay, Dave, looks like you're a solar driver. Huh, well, seriously though, I hope I didn't come off like I was putting down solar drivers. You gotta do what works for you. Personally, I'm kind of glad my circadian rhythm has a split personality. Keeps things interesting for me. But this does go to show how different we drivers all are. For instance, early in your comment, you mentioned that you wouldn't get much sleep if you had to park next to a reefer unit. I am the exact opposite. I love some noise while I sleep, so I always look for reefers to park beside when I know it's sleepy time. The only time I hate reefers is when I'm trying to record a podcast. Then I hate them worse than a Windows PC. Alright, thanks for the recommendation of the 48 Days podcast. I've heard Dan Miller's name through Dave Ramsey's show, and I even bought his 48 Days book a long time ago. I honestly didn't get a whole lot out of the book, but that's no mark against Dan. I just don't tend to get a lot out of these rah-rah you can do it type of programs. To each their own, kind of like that reefer thing, I guess. Now you will be happy to know that my company has changed their tune on cooking in the truck. When they took away our cooking devices, that was one of the only times a whole mess of truckers agreed on anything enough to revolt. The company had so many complaints that they reversed their decision on the cooking devices. Granted, it took them a year to pull their head out. We even have inverters in our new trucks. Yes, I'm as shocked as you. From what the safety director told me, the company had wanted to put inverters in the trucks for quite some time, but they would only do it if the manufacturer would install and warranty them. As the story goes, the Internationals we were buying had lame wiring that couldn't handle inverters. Now I know some of you drivers are going to say, I have an inverter in my International. Maybe that's so. But clearly International wasn't confident enough in their wiring system to back it up with a warranty. Now, I don't know if they upgraded the wiring in the new models or if they decided to grow a pair about their current systems. It might have just had something to do with my company starting to order Freightliners with warranty-covered inverters in them, too. Either way, I did stick with my company through all this. Like I always say, it's all about priorities. My priority was, and still is, money. They pay more than anyone else I can find, and even if they ripped out my inverter and banned all my cooking devices tomorrow, I'd hate their guts, but I probably wouldn't quit. So I guess that says something. Whether that says something about me or them is up to interpretation. Thanks for writing in again, David. I always appreciate getting driver feedback. Next up, it's Steven's time to pipe in. He writes, Hello, welcome back. I enjoyed your last show. Let's see, that would have been Complacency Strikes, I believe. Yeah, that makes sense. Looking at the rest of his thing. Yeah, so this was about drivers getting cocky when they're experienced drivers. He says, okay, I enjoyed your last show. I found your podcast from the Trucking Podcast. The Trucking Podcast. Guys, let me break in here a second. If you like trucking podcasts and I just don't put them out enough for you, which I know I don't, go check out these guys. They're pretty regular. They put out one per week. It covers news stories and stuff. It's a father-son team, and they're a hoot. So go check them out. It's just simply called the Trucking Podcast. Find it in any of your podcasting apps, iTunes, any place you listen to podcasts, you'll find it. And they're really cool guys, so check them out. Anyway, Stephen goes on to say, no offense, but you sound like, when you start out a sentence with no offense, that usually means you're about to offend somebody. Oh, seriously, Stephen, that's funny though. He says, no offense, but you sound like Felix Jr. from Wreck-It-Ralph. I keep waiting for you to say, I'm going to fix it. I drive in the Northeast, and I see tons of rollovers and truck crashes more often than I want to. If I see one a year, that's one too many. I just think that could have been me, and it's a cold awakening of how dangerous trucking is, and I also use the Smith system. I enjoy the show. I hope your evil overlord feels better. I hope it's not a bi-yearly podcast. Love your show. Keep up the good work. Best regards, Steven. Well, Steven, I'm only answering 4 months later. Although, to be fair, people, I did email him back. I often will email somebody back and give them an answer right away, and then I will read it later on. So to be fair, it was only, I don't know, a month maybe? That's still pretty sad. Anyway, Steven, the evil overlord is nearly back to normal, except for she still isn't supposed to lift over 15 pounds. Meaning she's still evil, she still makes me carry stuff for her all the time, and she still rolls her eyes a lot when I say we'll have to refrain from sexual activities until her weight limit is increased. Thanks for asking about the winch, and I'll pass the word along to her. As for the Smith system, I have been through it. I think the end result is useful, but I hated the training process. I don't know how yours went, but I felt like an idiot driving around in a passenger van with a bunch of other drivers from orientation saying stuff like, "I see a car trying to pull out over there. I should be ready to brake if he makes a move." Or, "I'm keeping my eyes moving by checking my mirrors." Even worse, this company required us to go through the whole process again every year. Pure overkill, in my opinion. So let me get this straight. It sounds like your best defense against getting complacent with safety is by seeing wrecks all the time, right? Maybe that's my problem. I don't get to the Northeast nearly as often as I used to. And maybe I'll have to ask my dispatcher to run me up there more often. On second thought, I think I'd just rather roll my truck a few times. And hey, Steven, I have to admit that I wasn't offended at all at your saying I sounded like Felix Jr. from Wreck-It-Ralph. As I've never seen the movie, though, I had to go look it up on YouTube. I still didn't recognize the voice, so I looked it up on IMDb. I literally laughed out loud when I saw that it was Jack McBrayer. The only movie I've ever seen him in was Talladega Nights, where he was one of the pit crew, and I thought he was hilarious, largely due to the way he spoke. I couldn't find anywhere on YouTube where he said, you know, the Wreck-It Ralph Felix character said, "I can fix it," like he was, like Steven said he expected me to keep saying. I couldn't find that clip anywhere, but I did find a long clip of the Felix character going on a rant, and I'm also going to include a clip from Talladega Nights, where I think most of you will recognize him as the geeky little guy. But you know, I'm not upset about this, Steven, but I can't say that I'm overjoyed that I sound like him, because, you know, I don't think we ever sound like we think we do. We all sound different. And you know I'm no Barry White, but I sure didn't expect to be, you know, Glenn the dweeby mechanic either. Oh well, I guess we all work with what God gives us. If I was paranoid about my voice, I wouldn't be putting it out here every 6 months. And hey, I nearly forgot. Let's learn a little bit about Steven. He wrote back in again. We had quite a few exchanges. Some of them got a little, well, I don't know how to say it, but I won't be. We were just cutting up, and he's a funny guy, but I don't think a lot of the people would find it all that funny, politically correct people. Let's just say that. So, I found it hilarious, though. Nothing to do with race or anything like that. Don't worry about that. It was just funny, but some people wouldn't find it funny, and I've had experience with this in the past, so I'm not going there again. But he did write back, and he writes, okay, thanks for the email. Yeah, you're welcome. How are you? How's the road? Hope the evil overlord's feeling better. To be honest, I can't wait until she's feeling better. I love the stories, and I'm not going to lie, it's very funny, because it's not happening to me. He says, this is what's going on with me. I used to be a full-time truck driver, but now I'm a full-time student. I am not a truck driver now because my car is broken down again. 3 months ago, I blew up the engine and the warranty company replaced it, but then it went again 2 weeks ago. Bummer. Right now I'm using the GI Bill. Thanks for your service there, Steven. And that's paying for college and rent. I could work, but it's snowing out, and I've been watching Netflix instead. Boy, I know that. Oh, Netflix. That's what keeps me from podcasting so much. He says, I just told my boss having trouble with transportation, and he's okay with that. Well, you know the slow season anyway. If the company is really busy, he'd want me to take the truck home. I'm going to school for an accounting degree. After 9 years on the road, I decided to try college. And then he switches back to the Smith system. He says, I love the Smith system. I always try to be as detailed as possible, like saying, there's an old guy with gray hair, blue jeans that just picked his nose. Or point out planes in the sky and say, potential hazards. Oh, that's funny. He goes on and says, I love your show, and my favorite story is with you and the garage door opener. Okay, people. If you missed that one, you'll have to go back to Trucker Dump 100, which was called What Makes the Evil Overlord Evil. And if you guys haven't figured it out yet, the evil overlord is my wife and my ex-co-driver for 9 years. Anyway, that's a funny story. It still gets retold at almost every family gathering we have, and everybody still laughs just as hard about it because she is evil. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, that painful memory up there, Stephen. He finishes up by saying, right now, other than school, Netflix, and the college agreed today that I can use their 3D printer. I'm going to learn how to make 3D drawings and take them up on that. Well, that sounds pretty freaking cool. I'd like to play with a 3D printer too, but I just don't have time. So you enjoy it for me, Stephen. And you know, one of the things Stephen did that was really cool is he sent a picture of himself, which was great because it's always nice to put a face with a name. So if you're going to send in an email or a comment or anything like that, feel free to send a little picture of yourself. Appreciate that. I don't care about your truck because I'm not the kind of guy. I don't need to see your truck and how awesome it is. But you know, if you want to send me who you are, great. Next up, I have to admit I was a little surprised when I saw an email from Long Duck.
What's happening, hot stuff?
I can't help it, you know. Oh, every time I think of that name, I think of that little clip from 16 Candles. Man, that movie was hilarious. Anyway, he had a listen to one of the complacency things, and probably both of them. And he writes, fear of screwing up and past screw-ups helps me to not be complacent. Like when I overshot my fifth wheel and modified my cab extenders. I was looking for a way to smooth out the evidence so I didn't get in trouble. And he says, sorry for the absence of punctuation. I'm on my droid speaking to text. You know, and this is a normal problem. People have been doing this a lot. They'll, you know, I don't know, maybe they're dictating on their phones or something, and I get emails. I wouldn't say a lot, but I get plenty of them that just don't have any punctuation in it, which is why sometimes I stammer through these things because they are so hard to read when you don't put punctuation in them. So, let me tell you guys, just a little hint in case you didn't know, and I wrote him and back and told him about this. With most dictation software, if you speak the punctuation, it will enter it. For instance, if you say, Todd is a really cool guy, semicolon, at least that's what he told me, period, it'll enter the punctuation for you. There are also lots of other tricks. Like you can say, Todd is very important, comma, therefore he can only manage to do a podcast every, numeral, 6 months, period. Who does this guy think he is? Question mark. Not only will this insert the comma and the question mark, but this will also cause the number 6 to show up instead of the word 6. If you want to get even trickier, you could say, Todd's username in Clash of Clans is Todd the Bot, open parentheses, which should be considered false advertising, close parentheses, period. So, hope you like those examples. So anyway, Long Duck, what's up with this? Are you a 16 Candles guy or what? I do love that name, though. It's just hilarious. I did find out later that he got his nickname while he was 19 and was working at a Ford dealership. And someone had told him he looked like Long Duck Dong, and so everybody started calling him Long Duck. Well, And other people now say that he looks like Uncle Si from the Duck Dynasty. He sent me a picture also, which was great, and I could see the Uncle Si thing more because he's got a huge mustache. It's a glorious thing. Hangs all the way down past his chin. But I don't see the long duck thing. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he was 19 and younger. It could be. I don't know. Take the glasses away from the picture and the mustache. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe he just walked around saying, "What's happening, hot stuff?" a lot. I don't know. But anyway, he also did say that he tried saying the punctuation and it just doesn't work on his Droid, which, kind of makes me laugh since I'm an Apple guy, because it works pretty darn good on my iPhone. Anyway, let's get back to the fact that he damaged his wings. Overshooting your trailer sucks. Or should I say, undershooting. I've been there and done that. Thankfully, I managed to get stopped before I had to smooth out the evidence, as you put it. Nice wording there. I'd be willing to bet that if there was some way to track it, we'd find that there are more damaged cab extenders out there than any part of the truck. Although I'd be willing to bet that most of those aren't from backing underneath it, but from drivers attempting illegal U-turns or trying to get themselves out of a sticky situation. And I do know what you mean about past grips and how, it does tend to affect me. I tend to be more cautious when I'm in a situation similar to when I've screwed up before. For example, early in my career, I smashed up another truck's driver side mirror when I was backing into a truck stop. I remember that to this day, and when I'm not 100% certain I'm going to clear the spot or clear the guy's mirror, I'm hopping out to walk back and check. Likewise, I hit a light pole in a parking lot once, and I'm still overly cautious when I pull into any parking lot that isn't necessarily designed for trucks. I'm going to save that story for another time. Need I say it, though? The evil overlord loves to warn me of light poles, even when I'm driving our Honda Pilot. I really hate her sometimes. Sadly, the fear of screwing up just doesn't work for me as well. I've never rear-ended anyone, knock on wood, so unfortunately I'm not nearly as leery of that as I would be if I had previously pushed someone's trunk into their front seat. I'll keep trying, though, to be cautious, not rear-end somebody. Keep the shiny side up, driver. Wow. That must be the most truckery thing I've ever said. Where the heck did that come from? Wow. Well, thanks for writing in with your anti-complacency tips, Long Duck.
What's happening, hot stuff?
Sorry, had to do that again. That is great. Okay, let's get on to Jed, the safety guy. Let's finish this puppy up here. He writes, I read your article on stupid rules that drivers tolerate. I've been doing safety now for 3 years. Fresh out of graduate school with a degree in occupational safety. My biggest fear is someone getting hurt. One, because it sucks for the person and their family. Second, my ass gets chewed out for missing something or so-called not doing enough to prevent it. I want to make it easy on everyone, our employees and our drivers. So I want your input. What have you seen that really works for dock safety? I see you mentioned taking the driver's keys is stupid. I've heard the pros and cons from both sides. It seems like all the ideas are not really good. It's as if no matter what direction you take, you either piss the drivers off or your own employers. So lay it on me. What really works? Well, Jed, first let me say thanks for being a safety guy who actually cares enough to find my article and be reading something about it. I totally understand where you're coming from. The whole reason all these stupid rules exist is because of our lawsuit-happy culture. It's really sad. As Billy the Kid said, let's kill all the lawyers. Kill them tonight. Or was that the Eagles? Anyway, first off, taking a driver's keys is stupid. I actually forgot to mention it in the podcast, but a listener reminded me that every driver has 2 or more sets of keys. We give the shipping or receiving clerk one of them. The others are still in our pocket or already in the truck. Like I said, stupid, not to mention ineffective. In my opinion, dock locks should be enough. This is my favorite method. They're convenient for both the dock worker and the driver. And if the light is working correctly, which it does 99% of the time, the driver knows when not to pull away, and the dock worker knows when they can or cannot drive the forklift onto the trailer. And even if the dock light malfunctions, when the driver tries to pull away from the dock, the hook usually provides enough resistance to make the driver stop and think, wait a second, what the heck's going on here? But for the record, this malfunctioning dock lock has happened to me a handful of times over the course of my 17 years. The only potential problem with dock locks is the idiot driver who unwisely dumps the clutch when pulling away from the dock. Now, he'd get a good jolt if the dock lock hadn't actually released, but it might be too late at that point. I don't know if those hooks are strong enough to hold, as I've never been stupid enough to pull away from the docks like I'm trying to beat a funny car off the line. If you want to cover your own butt, I'm sure the manufacturers of dock locks have some sort of statistics on how much force it would take to yank one of those out of a concrete wall. Now, if you want to go a different route, I think the glad hand locks are the absolute safest. That's because it's really hard to drag a trailer when the brakes are locked up, even if it's empty. Again, though, where there's a will to destroy, some moron will find a way. For example, if there's snow or ice on the pavement, the trailer can be pulled without releasing the brakes, whether it's loaded or empty. If the trailer's empty, you might even be able to move the trailer on wet pavement, but it still won't be done without knowing something's up. The drawback here is that it requires more of both parties. The driver has to unhook the red airline, but that only takes about 5 seconds unless the driver weighs 400 pounds and it takes him forever to get out of the truck. The bigger convenience comes to the dock worker, who has to walk outside to install the glad hand lock and again to take it off when they're finished. Although some of the dock workers I've talked to love the process because it gives them a chance to grab a quick smoke while they're outside. So I guess if they decide to finish that cigarette, that might not be a good thing from a productivity point of view. So to sum it up, while I think dock locks should be enough, if you want to really cover your gluteus maximus, I think the combination of dock locks and glad hand locks is the absolute safest method. If a stupid driver decides to pull away from the dock, not only would they have to pull a trailer with the brakes locked, but they'd also have to yank the dock lock out of the wall. Even a complete imbecile would know something's wrong before they could screw anything up. Or you'd think anyway. But if they did manage to pull away, even when they weren't supposed to, at least your butt should be covered with this two-step method. When your boss gets there to survey the damage, just point at the locked glad hand and the attached dock lock, then point at the driver and say, "Dumbass." Then again, this is a litigious world we live in, so need I say it? I claim no responsibility in this matter. Follow my advice at your own risk. I hope this helps you, Jed. And you know what, guys? I want your opinion on this. And, I'm sorry, people. I always say guys because there's so many guys out here. I mean people, I mean folks, I mean guys and gals. I just don't say it enough. So I apologize to any women who listen to my podcast. And quite honestly, I haven't gotten email from any female listener in a long time, so I probably offended them with all my bathroom humor. So, I don't know. If there's any of you still out there, write me. Let me know. Anyway, I want to enlist your guys' opinions on this. Did I give Jed good advice? Does the combination of the dock lock and the glad hand lock work? Is that what you would suggest? That was my thoughts, but hey, I'm not the brightest bulb out here. So, write in, let me know. That's it for today, I think. As always, I appreciate you guys listening. Let's crank up some tunes. Okay, folks, what did I miss? What pisses you off at the fuel bay? Write in or send an audio comment to truckerdump@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on the blog at abouttruckdriving.com. Constructive criticism, questions, and suggestions are always welcome too. You can shout at me on Twitter where I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. I'm not on Facebook, so if you tell your friends about the podcast over there, I'd be forever grateful. And if you haven't left a review on iTunes yet, please consider doing so. There just might be a cookie in it for you. And thanks as always for listening. I really can't express how much I do appreciate it. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way.